this is Nathaniel from the Robo Raiders FTC 7129. Today I have Knut with me, a FIRST alum and engineering student at Rose Hulman. Today we are going to be discussing game strategy and how your team can use it effectively. So what exactly is game strategy and how can you use it to your advantage?
So game strategy is basically how you decide which missions are going to be most valuable for your team. There are a lot of things that go into that, such as how experienced your team is, how many points a mission is worth, and how difficult it is. So you combine all those to decide which ones are most valuable, and that defines your strategy for the game.
At the beginning of the season, how do you decide which scoring objectives you would like to do during a match?
So one of the easiest ones to figure out what is best is low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit is essentially scoring objectives that are really easy to get and get you some quick points. So one example is a couple years ago during the relic recovery season, your robot started on a small platform and then you're able to get points by driving off that platform, and you're able to get some more points by driving back onto that platform at the end of the match. We saw a lot of teams during earlier competitions who weren't able to do that, even though it was a relatively simple task, mostly because they just hadn't thought about that as part of their game strategy, so they hadn't designed their robots to be able to do that part of the game. So recognizing some of those simpler scoring objectives is generally very helpful just to get some quick points on the board that you know will be reliable and able to boost your score.
What is the best strategy for earlier competitions? Should you make a strategy for just your earlier competition or make a strategy throughout the entire season?
So your strategy depends quite a lot on the level of your team. If you're a rookie team, then going after one thing is probably one of your best bets. If you can focus on one thing and do it well, it'll be able to serve you pretty well. And being able to get past qualifier and onto state championship would be a really great accomplishment for a rookie team. So if you're able to focus on one thing, then that will really help you there. However, if you're a more advanced team, and maybe you have a shot at going to Worlds or been there in the past, you'll probably want to have a more advanced robot. So being able to plan for starting with something small, and then working your way up towards including more scoring objectives later on. If you have that in mind, then that's normally a better approach for a more experienced team.
How do you make your autonomous as consistent as possible?
So there are three main things that really help make consistent autonomous. One of the main things is putting the most consistent parts of your autonomous first, because it's all autonomous and you don't get to control it. If your robot messes up early on, then you're going to have a lot more trouble getting relined later on. It can probably mess up most of your autonomous. So you put something that's really consistent at the beginning, then you're more likely to get those points and put the rest of your points towards the end. A couple other things that really help are using sensors when they're useful. So a lot of the mats tend to have white lines on there or other things you can use a sensor for to help figure out where the robot is in the field. And sometimes you can even use the field itself as a way to align your robot. Something we used a couple of years ago was taking a tip from FIRST Alumnus teams of just using wheels and driving along the side of a wall. So that really helped align a robot. So those three things of going for the most consistent things first, being able to use sensors when they're helpful, and then being able to use the field itself to help align yourself are all things that really help make for a strong autonomous.
How does your game strategy change from practicing by yourself to during a competition with 3 other robots on the field?
One of the biggest things that changes is what you can depend on your alliance partner to do. In the past, sometimes it was really helpful to depend on your alliance partner to do endgame challenges because they can often be done just by one robot. So you can focus more on some of the main tele objectives where you can both work together to get as many of those done as possible, and then just rely on one robot to do the endgame strategy. But that won't work quite as well this year if it's only your robot on the field. So those endgame objectives become a lot more important, especially because of how they affect your ranking this year. So going after those is probably going to be very helpful for your team.
Do you have any other tips or suggestions for teams watching this video?
Probably one of the biggest things I can say is try and keep your robot super simple and just go for 1 or 2 things to start. If you can get those down really well and have those just really consistent, that'll help you going forward. And then once you've got those down, you can start working on more complicated objectives and pursue your strategy from there.
Thank you so much for joining us, Knut, and thank you all for watching. Thank you for watching this video on game strategy with Knut, an engineering student at Rose Hulman. This is our 3rd video in our Game On series. Next week's video will be on the design process. Stay tuned. Bye.